I think we definitely have some work to do as a feminine culture and as a masculine culture. However, we have been more male dominated, but I do
Hmm.
feel Mother Earth is preparing and showing the way to help soften that masculinity that might have been more in a control, as opposed to now how do we stay in our power in a safe and beautiful way, and vice versa. For women, we don't need to hide and be quiet. We can be loud, but we don't need to put down in that loud, and we can be wild and free and go with our cycles. But it's understanding each other. How are you curious with one another when you ask questions, curious with self and curious with your partner?
Into the fire, here we go. Into the fire, head to toe. Into the fire, to be seen. Into the fire, to be.
Hello, this is Mark A. Lewis. This is the Sacred Village podcast. Welcome to another episode. I've been interviewing a string of men, and the focus has been on men's work. Two of them are men from a men's circle that I've been a part of, and another is a stalwart presence in the community here. He runs another men's circle here in Salmon Arm in the interior of British Columbia. And so I'm casting my net in a different direction. I'm wanting to bring in the voice of the feminine of a couple of women. And the first woman that I felt drawn to have a conversation with, to delve into her story and experience, is a woman named Nina Fields. She lives in Squamish, British Columbia. That's where I met her when I was living there. And we have some friends in common. I believe we have a school in common in the past, the Waldorf School, for our children for a period of time at least. And well, without further ado, hello, Nina. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me on the podcast. I'm very excited to have a chat.
Yes, and here we are. We're going to do that. So your moniker, your business is the Heartful Healer.
Yes.
So
That's
I
it.
think that kind of captures, from what I'm hearing, both your practice, the counseling side, and the spiritual side for yourself, for your clients. Does that feel true? Can you tell us a little bit about that umbrella, just to begin kind of laying a foundation for our audience, for those people who don't know you?
Yes, thank you. I am a counselor by trade, and I'm a Buddhist practitioner. And when I was deciding how to work in the world, I really wanted to help people and support people on their healing journeys, which I'm feeling very grateful to be able to help people and bear witness to their journeys. And my spiritual practice in Buddhism and meditation has really helped guide me in the area of counseling and somatics and trauma work and addiction work with men, women, families, and couples.
Wow. Yeah. So that's a really beautiful umbrella. I mean, it really lands for me in terms of the things that, or the aspects of life that I consider to be a priority, being of service, but then in that way, like connecting for myself, connecting to that spiritual practice, connecting to something bigger. So why don't we start with you? Like, how would you describe where you're at with your spiritual journey?
Right now, my Buddhist practice, or my practice of spirituality, is really, I have a huge affinity for nature. It's definitely a place where I feel drawn to, connected with, in particular, the ocean. We've all come from the ocean in some form, and that's really a place that helps me recenter and reground, in particular after working with people who have trauma and experiencing challenges. And meditation practice, which I've had for probably my whole life, but not really understanding what it meant. So I actually found out about spirituality and meditation. My mom really raised me that way, raised me a spiritual way. We were very open to all different things. But when I look back, it was more of a Buddhist leanings, but she never called it that. And when I found a Buddhist monastery in the Nicola Valley, which is called Birken, as soon as I walked in the door, it felt like I came home. And it said that when we get back on the path in this lifetime, we are just continuing the path of the lifetime. So it's something true and dear to my heart. And when we stay very much in the middle path, as the Buddha called it, and practice in a mindful way, it allows us to really stay connected in this present moment. So that's what guides me in my everyday life as a mother and everyday life as a friend and a practitioner.
Your kids did go to the Waldorf school, didn't they?
They did, yes,
Yeah.
they both did, yeah.
How
And
did you?
our sons, I think, were in the class together at some point, or maybe our son was in an older grade than my son.
Yeah, but they knew each other, and they were, amongst friends where they had
Mm-hmm.
friends in common.
Mm-hmm.
And your son has actually been up to my property to do a sweat.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right. Yes, he did
couple of
his
times.
that's right. He did his rites of passage with you.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I've forgotten about that.
Yeah, and it was a real pleasure to have him there.
Yeah.
Because he quietly understood what was happening in a way, and was also curious about what he didn't know. But I suppose what I mean by that is that he knew that there was something sacred. I'm not sure, at that age of 12 or 13, I'm not really sure if that
Mm-hmm.
was in his vocabulary in a meaningful way, but he seemed to have an intuition that there was something meaningful happening, something deeper than maybe than what we can talk about or describe with our words
Mm-hmm.
and our minds. So yeah, it was a real pleasure
That's
to have him there.
amazing. Oh, thank you so much for that. That was such a beautiful experience for him, and
Hmm.
he was able to do that and have that experience with other men and supportive men, and can't ask for anything more for your son or your daughter to have
Yeah,
those experiences. So
totally.
thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah, to be able to offer that, like, because there were adults there. I had a good friend that was there, his children, and then your son came along, and yeah, that relationship between, as the adults and the children do these ceremonies together. It's not very common that opportunity presents itself, but when it does, it's very special. And I know that the spirits love it. My spirit certainly
Mm-hmm.
does, but I really do feel like it's being seen and witnessed, and that, from the unseen, so to speak, in a really powerful way. So, yeah.
And we've lost our way. Is I really believe it takes a village to raise ourselves, and it takes a village to raise our children. And we've lost our way in this modern world. And so, having even just the Sacred Village podcast, it's helping to bring those voices together so that we can help heal each other. Because I often say this to clients is, it's like we're all in the same boat, but we're those tanker ships, and there's individual containers on those tanker ships, and we're all on the same boat, but we all have our own individual things, but we're sharing this journey together.
Hmm. Yeah, that's right. We're all in it together. And that, yeah, the notion of the sacred village, it's just, it can never fully be realized, and yet every step towards it is a beautiful step. And I guess, yeah, being able to do our own work, find our own path, and then being able to share that, with our children, and then commune with others, in circle and just in different ways. How has Buddhism kind of helped you find your connection with self, with your heart? Like, are you able to put that into words at all?
Wow, that is an interesting question. I think it allows a slowness. So for me, it allows me to have an anchor, a point where I'm steeping in one well that I can always go back to and learn from and gain from and experience from in all ways, from mind, body, and spirit. So I find often if I lose my way, if I come back to those grounding moments of my breath, doing a body scan, connecting in with where are my feet, even where are my feet, where am I in this space in my body, that it helps just be more settling in my heart as we live in a world that is disruptive, as we live in a world of raising children, for those of you that are parents, and for a world that's very wild at times. And being able to come back to that grounding point. And again, I want to reiterate that steeping in one well, really
Hmm.
coming back to those teachings are really what's guided me in my life and helped me get through many turbulent times.
Appreciate why you're emphasizing the one well. Um, it's easy, when we're young, it's natural, particularly if we're not growing up in a particular tradition or lineage, to want to search for the thing that speaks to us, and we may have to search in different wells for a while. But if you can find a lineage, a tradition, a practice that speaks to you, if this, I, I, I don't know any lineage. I haven't come across any traditions that don't have depth. But the ones that have depth, and if that depth leads to God, or whatever the word that one wants to use when conjuring the great mystery of existence, there's an infinite number of possibilities and space to go and delve into, but to be able to tether to one practice, I do feel as a profound benefit, for being able to go to that depth and carry us through our life, from beginning to end, as we age, as we go through different aspects of, being a human being, different archetypes. Do you feel like that's true? Like as you mature, I mean, I must, I can guess that Buddhism is able to hold that. Can you speak to that at
Yes,
all?
for sure. So definitely as of age, I turned 50 this year, and it was said that definitely on our spiritual paths is when we would start our spiritual paths when we were 50, once our kids have left home and we're
Mm.
able to steep in that one well. So a lot of times people went to ashrams or went traveling during those times. And for me, being able to find that anchor point, like you said, and grounding and being able to hold that space really will help me service others, because especially as a healer, it's very important that we are tethered in some way. There is sadly a lot of wounding that happens from healers that are healing people that aren't actually tethered in some practice or lineage or even support. I see a therapist as a therapist. I feel that's really important. And I make sure that the people that I'm working with also have their tether. So when you're looking to work with somebody, it's really good to see who are their leaders or their tethers, and how do they tether in their practice, and what are they steeping in, and really helps me as I've aged to keep knowing that this will be a forever practice for me. This, even more so than when I was younger, I didn't really understand what spirituality really meant. I definitely had a lot of experiences. I'm a very, get a lot of visions and so forth. But until I had something to put that place, I didn't really realize the magnitude that it had on me and my heart and my world around me.
How do you find the practice of Buddhism and um, creating a trajectory, like an understanding for yourself as a woman,
Mm.
differentiating yourself from men? I don't want to say differentiating necessarily between feminine and masculine. How has Buddhism helped you kind of identify your authentic self?
Wow, that's a good question. I feel the word that's coming to me is a softness. There's something about being soft with that practice in Buddhism, that there's that anchor point so that I can be in my softness and I can be held in a practice that is very old. And the original Buddha is 2,600 years. And so the teachings, even though there's different lineages and different ways that it's taught, are still a point where I know where I stand or can land. And we can't always say that in our everyday life with our different interactions or what our family upbringings might have been. So for me, that's the place that I know I can go and I'm held. I'm held there.
And Buddhism's always just been so loving.
Mm.
I have a very good friend that's been a Buddhist for many years, and it saved his life, in a manner
Mm.
of speaking.
A lot of people during the Buddha's time, when he created the sanghas and the places for practice, he would tell people, you can't escape your life. This isn't about escaping your life and just coming. And so he suggested people would come for 24 hours for once a month. And in that 24 hours, the reasoning being you couldn't leave at night because you might be eaten by a tiger in India. But
Mm-hmm.
staying the 24 hours and taking those teachings, he said it's easy to be at the monastery. It's easy to be here. But when you get home, that's the work, that's the practice in your family and in your life. You take those teachings for those 29 days and you practice. And so we don't necessarily need to go to the monasteries, but it's helpful for a short period of time. But really the work is the integration, and how do we take those teachings and actually put it into practice.
And if you find yourself getting off track, you know where to go. Like,
Yes,
does that feel true?
that feels very true.
Yeah. And having that tether, isn't it beautiful?
Hmm. It's amazing. I'm so grateful for it. I'm so grateful I found that path and that I can go to that, or whatever your spiritual leanings may be. It's finding where your anchor is, because that's what's going to save you in some way. And you mentioned your friend. It's Buddhism saved him. Any practice that we're really leaning into and steeping in and finding that anchor point can bring us back to, where am I? Where are my feet? How am I existing in this world here?
Totally. And I mean, any teaching around attachment and around compassion, like those are master teachers.
Mhm.
In other words, as a human being, we can't master those teachings. Like there's always another step, another learning, another layer, unless you're the Buddha, right? Like it just,
Yeah.
which makes it, interesting eternally.
Hmm.
How much deeper can we go? How deep do we really want to be in relation to where we're at in our lives and in our responsibilities in our lives, I guess.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
And especially as parents, and this, and being able to be in that community and being able to raise children that also will go out into the world and hopefully feel like they have some kind of anchor point and tether. And it doesn't mean they have to follow exactly what you're teaching them, but if you're holding, I think it's consistency. I think we lack a lot of rhythm, routine, and consistency in our life in all different ways. And that was the beautiful thing about having Waldorf school, because they really created such a beautiful environment for our children.
Mm-hmm.
But they really followed that rhythm of the day and that routine and the consistency, but in a way that wasn't in a box. And
Yeah.
it saw each child. And I think when we're in the village, we are looking at each person in that village as all their uniqueness and what do they bring to that village.
Yeah. And being able to be seen, for that person to be able to be seen, and for the adults to see them
Mm.
for their uniqueness and, to see value. There's an emphasis on that in the Waldorf school, and the teachings and the environment, the consciousness, the values of that school. It certainly trickled out of the container of the school and into my life as a parent. It was very valuable for me to witness that this existed. I started showing up in the morning and hanging out with my son's teacher, while my other younger boy was at the playground, and it became an important part of my day.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, just it was just a possibility around connection and being seen and having deeper conversations that I hadn't had. And I was 40 years old, early 40s at the time, and I hadn't had that in my life. I don't know how that happened. Like how is that not happening for everybody on a regular basis? But yeah, you have to be able to slow down and look for those opportunities, I suppose. And then those opportunities do have to be there. And I hope that they seem to be happening more and more, becoming more and more available for people as time goes on, as we're kind of growing as a culture.
I hope so. I definitely hope so. A beautiful thing is I reached out to the principal of the Waldorf school because I'm running a group therapy in Squamish in November, and I get to use their space. So I'm going to be back in that space to run this group therapy. And again, there's that village coming back to support the community, and we definitely need to see each other and look in each other's
Hmm.
eyes and hold space, like you said. To We all just want to be seen for the good, the bad, and everything in between. And I don't like using those words good and bad, but we really want to be seen for who we are. And it saddens my heart that so many clients, when they sit and they just think they're broken and they can't see their goodness or their beauty or their joy. And the client that was just here before our conversation today really feels that pain in her heart. And at the end of the session, she said, "Wow, I feel like I just let go of all these demons," and she was able to release. And what a gift to be able to have that. And I feel that often it's coming through me, as you can understand. When you're on a spiritual path or a healing path, we have all our ancestors and we have all of the spirits. And in Buddhism, it's called the devas, which are the angelic realms, and they're here supporting us and helping us heal when we take that role. I think it's so important not to take that lightly, and to help people see I like to call it their gems. Their gems.
That's interesting. The angelic realms, that carries over with many traditions.
Mm-hmm.
You get to a certain point on any of these tethers, it's sort of like a mandala, but the spokes of a bicycle all leading to the same place.
Mm.
But if they do indeed lead to that place, that the center, the heart of existence, of the universe, of God.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, what do you think of the process of transformation? What do you see as a counselor? Does somebody's life have to come undone if they are living with a lot of grief, a lot of despair? Are there gentle steps that can happen? Does it matter? Does it really karmic? How do you make of that word transformation and the different
Mm.
aspects of it?
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted for sure. Definitely, we know epigenetically that in our gene lines it's 13 generations back. So we definitely have generational trauma that is existing in all of us. And we definitely have current trauma that people experience. And so when people are working, I think we have to be very gentle and kind and go slow, because we're fragile as people and human beings. And again, though, it takes one person to really see that person that actually can help people come out of their despair or their guilt or their shame. And when they have an experience of a held container or a held space, that they can show up with however they need to show
Mm.
up. I used to work with troubled teens in the alternative school system, and those were my favorites to work with back in the day. The rougher, the more exciting, because they had lived such a life that so many people had shunned them away or pushed them away into a different schooling system. And being able to just hold space for that child. We're basically all inner childs walking around with our little inner woundeds, I call them, that want to be seen and held for, "Oh, I see you." Like, how
Hmm.
powerful is that? I see you.
Hmm.
And I remember the first time I did go to the monastery, you can interview with the abbot, the head monk, and I'd never sat in front of a Buddhist monk in my life. And I sat down, I said, "I don't even know what to talk about." And he looked at me and he said, "I see you." And I burst into tears. It was so powerful. It just shocked me. I was like, "Oh my goodness, you see me? Oh, okay." It's just so powerful. I'll never forget that moment. And we had kind of a giggle about it, but it's just very powerful because they devote their lives to this work. And especially, and I know I've said this before and reiterating how powerful it is as a healer to continue to do your healing work so that you can be of service in this way, because there's so much wounding out there. So many people have been unlawfully wounded in so many different ways. And how do we hold that container for them to, like you said, it just takes space. I wish sometimes somebody sitting in front of me, I could just make it go away overnight. And they sometimes beg me, why can't this go away? And I tell them it's just a process of just being held and seen and walking this path and going through. It's not pushing away the pain, it's actually bringing it close and almost looking at it. And it isn't who you are. Anxiety isn't who you are. It's just a symptom of the trials and tribulations of your life. And if we can sit with just noticing it and asking it, what does that part of you need? It isn't who you are. It's just a part of you that's speaking right now. It's a younger part of you that might be speaking right now. And so when we go on that journey and that step one at a time, it's such a beautiful process to watch people shift. And doesn't mean sometimes things go away completely, but it's very powerful to witness and bear witness the journeys that people can actually feel a sense of relief. What does it feel like to actually feel that relief in your system, to have that exposed in a way that's held, like that beautiful being held by a dear love. Really powerful.
Do you ever listen to Gabor Mate? Or
I do.
read any like are you're familiar with some of his
I am.
teachings? And
Yes.
is it easy to integrate some of the things that he talks about, or Gordon Neufeld, for example, into the philosophy of Buddhism? Because I have a kinship with Gabor Mate in the sense that our tradition is the same. Like I would say that our guru is the same. I can't speak for him, but from what I understand, ayahuasca would be, a spiritual guru. It's kind of like, comes through a plant, but it's a spirit. And so then you have the Buddha, and the Buddha has teachings, and the primary teachings from ayahuasca are always around awareness and attachment. So obviously that, that crosses over into Buddhism. With the more, let's say, the humans that are at the highest level of that healing paradigm, is it pretty easy to dance with those teachings? Would you say? Are there differences that you navigate with Buddhism?
Well, I definitely think there's differences. I mean, in Buddhism, they would say that sometimes something that might happen, say in a ceremony, that might be too fast for somebody. It might impact the fragility of the mind, where sometimes doing Buddhist practice may take longer in some ways, or not be as, what's the word for it? Intense in some ways, that there's a slowness so that the body and the trauma and the information can come forward so that you can be with it and sit in front of it. However, plant medicines are incredible. We have so much knowledge now that we're learning about breaking through a lot of barriers and working. There's a lot of people who are working with ketamine therapy. I'm not sure if Gabor Mate does. I assume he might, around ketamine, because it blocks some of the trauma responses so that people can actually work through some of these severe traumas that they've experienced. So we are learning a lot and expanding and ever growing. And I think Buddhism, again, it's just something ancient. Not that the work with plants isn't ancient, because it is very ancient. I think they're similar and different. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, actually, I'm wondering specifically about the teachings that come from, like if I go down to Peru and sit with what's called the maestro, which translates loosely as a teacher, and somebody who has ascended on that path to a level where they can now teach other people. The language has a more humble connotation than we may understand it initially through the English lens. But as when he's interpreting people's experiences, I find there's a kinship. He could just be the Buddha or a disciple, let's say, talking, through the same lens of understanding pain, of understanding the human experience, understanding attachment. And like certainly if you're choosing, I do have I don't know if I would say an aversion, but I do there's something that comes up for me when ayahuasca is qualified as a plant medicine and put it in the same category as other psychedelics. I don't see it
Mhm.
as a psychedelic. I see it as a gatekeeper. So it's
Mm.
you can have but there is, let's say a karmic draw that some people have to a more rigorous teacher for reasons that can only be understood, through the individual.
Mhm.
It's not comparative. It's just, what are you drawn to? And yeah, I
Mhm.
suppose on a Buddhist path you can take more gentle steps, but you actually, I suppose you just have more choice, because you could also, I mean, for me, the idea of going and sitting in a monastery for 2 years and being silent, and that sounds very, very difficult. That would be like,
Yeah.
you're gonna come out of that at the other end, just for two
Mhm.
years, a very
Mhm.
different person.
Mhm.
Right. And not all of us would want karmically to be, to do that, to need to make that kind of adjustment. So it's sort of like individual, but I
Fair.
guess, yeah, I guess what, the question is more about, does it feel, with Gabor specifically, I guess I'll speak specifically about him. Does it feel like there's a harmony with what he's saying in terms of being trauma informed? And Buddhism and the spiritual path? Is that a question that can be answered?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I can fully answer that because again, I don't know where his full
Yeah,
anchor
fair enough.
points are and what his lineage or leanings fully are and
Hmm.
definitely, when we see spiritual leaders or people who are doing great work in the world, I'm always curious, okay, what is their path and what are they experiencing and how are they showing, as the Buddha said, in their integration, and what are they doing to heal themselves. But definitely, I mean, he's helped thousands of people and through this lens of working with these plants and helping people and written amazing books that people are able to learn and grow from. And uh, I think that each to, is it right to say each to their own, each person, like you had said, each path that somebody's going to go down, I think you're called to a particular area of path of whether that's Christianity or Buddhism, or you're working in spirituality, and who are you leaning towards in those realms. And so for each one, you're going to find those leaders that are speaking the path and the truth. But honestly, I think a lot of things do come back to the Buddhist teachings. I mean, 2,600 years ago, there's a lot of indication when you listen to a lot of people speak that there is some similarities across the board. And maybe that's naive for me to say or not appropriate for me to say, but I think that there's a lot of similarities with teachers of the world, big teachers of the world.
Yeah, I mean, if the primary, I mean, maybe you can shed a little bit of light on this, but it seems as though the primary teachings are around attachment, around awareness, around compassion.
Yeah, and also suffering. I think that's a big piece.
Oh, okay. Now we're talking.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that, because I'm very interested in that conversation. Yeah. What can you tell
Yeah.
me about that?
Well, the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths, which was okay, we suffer, that we all suffer as human beings. There's causes of suffering, there's way through the suffering, and this is the way, which is the Noble Eightfold Path, which is this whole way of being in the world. And mindfulness and meditation is kind of a facet of the Noble Eightfold Path. And so we are all suffering. We all have causes of our suffering. And when we are able to acknowledge our causes of suffering and being able to experience our way through them with how we are in the world. Some of the Noble Eightfold Path is around right action. How do we show up in the world? What do we do as work in the world? If we're killing people, that's going to create more suffering in our systems. If we are working in a world of helping, perhaps that's going to help some of our suffering as well. And we're all craving. We crave something to be different than it actually is, whether that's our mood or energy, or we want $1 million. It's probably now $5 million. And the Buddha really talked about how to just be with the moment of discomfort. And if we can really practice with that anattanaya, that non-self, really not being attached to that it has to look this way. And every human, is that old saying of keeping up with the Joneses. What does it look like to actually be in that connection with yourself, even amongst the suffering? And then again, we tie in, I see you in that suffering. I can hold you in that suffering, which you're doing. When you were doing sweat lodges, even my son said it was really hard in there, but he stayed in there. That's suffering. And how to kind of be held in that space from an elder, from another man, from another healer, whatever it may be in our world of being held. And Gabor Mate definitely holds that space for people, being a doctor and the work that he's done with the medicine, and uh, different spiritual teachers, from yogis to all kinds of different people in our world, poets even.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that you said there around it's like creating more suffering by creating how would you put that? Like the teaching, is there a specific teaching around how we manifest more suffering for ourselves by not being in alignment with the teachings? That's a very high level teaching, I imagine, for a lot of people who are, enmeshed in a certain upbringing, patterns, unconscious definition of love, like the love that they're searching for, that is just bringing them right back into an unhealthy version of what love actually isn't, but they believe it is because their nervous systems somehow orientate that way. Like, it's very complex.
We're in these relationships and we're repeating patterns because we're trying to work through our patterns from our childhood, and we're trying to heal some of those patterns that sometimes we're falling into those same patterns. And we see that with children over and over and over again, of trying to learn our way through and having those experiences of, in this moment, I'm going to make a different choice. I'm going to practice in a different way. I'm going to put a pause or a halt, perhaps, that allows me to take a different path. And so the Buddha talked a lot about bliss. Everybody wants to be in bliss. And then on the other scale of that is suffering. We can't live in suffering. We can't live in bliss, but we can live in the middle path, in the middle way, where it's a balance between bliss and suffering. And so they kind of bookend each other, but we can't live in either one. But we can come towards the middle of the practice of the middle path, which is, it's the Eightfold path, not the Eight Noble Truths. It's the Eightfold path, and being able to practice how we show up, how do we integrate, how do we talk to people, how do we practice? Like, what is your practice? Some people say, oh, I meditate an hour a day and I go for my run and I'm eating well and I'm kind to my neighbor and all of those different things. But are they really slowing down enough and integrating in their systems? And that could go for any ceremony. Are we coming home and we're integrating that into our systems so that we're starting to live a life that way?
Yeah. Or as many moments as we can in a day, that on that continuum, in that middle space between the bliss and the suffering. Yeah. What's your practice look like?
It varies at times. Sometimes it's more formal sitting. So I'll sit for an hour, sometimes in the morning, midday, or evening. It just kind of depends. And that can encompass walking meditation or sitting meditation. It's funny because the Buddha actually never taught walking meditation. It was actually just to help people digest food, but it became something, which is quite funny. So I also spend a lot of time in nature in a very mindful way. So if I go for a walk, I'll maybe take the same trail, and every day it will look different. And so I experience the trail or the space that I go to every time in a new way. So I try to pull in my senses, all my senses. And I'm at this river, and yesterday the water was high and today the water's low. And I just sit really immersing myself in nature. And also go away on retreats as well. And so sometimes it's very formalized, where I'm sitting and listening to teachings of the Dhamma or the Buddha. And sometimes I'm more in movement in a mindful way, experiencing that. So every day is a little different, but every day I'm connecting where am I? Where am I today? And how am I showing up in my everyday amongst everyday trials and tribulations?
Do you find that that's just becoming more of a, not a daily thing, but like that's like an embodied part of your life the older you get? Like we're the same
Um,
age, and what you're
mhm,
saying, it really resonates for me, and I do find that it's I'm able to carry very similar teachings, ostensibly the same teachings,
mm,
just more regularly throughout the entire day. And of course there'll be moments where
mhm,
I'll get lost in thought or lost in discomfort that takes me to stories or whatever, but the clouds pass so much
mm.
more quickly than they once
Oh
did.
yeah, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
They do. I'm amazed because when I was younger and trying to, you're on the hamster wheel and the thoughts are
Hmm.
on repeat and going over and over, and then now it is quicker because I can find my footing. I think just because I've been practicing for so long and really again anchoring in that space that it's like, okay, come back here. It's
Hmm.
okay. No matter what's going, I can come back here. And I know what's true because we can get lost in maybe illusion or distraction even. We can look at the underpinnings of even addiction from that place as well.
Right. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. And addiction certainly takes on many different masks, many different manifestations. And for different people, some people,
Hmm.
find themselves in the downtown east side addicted to some really intense chemicals. And other people,
Hmm.
do find, that they're dealing with their addictions in different ways that are more, that they're able to live an ordinary life, so to speak, but they are still harboring a lot of pain that of course is
Mm,
manifesting as the addiction. And um, yeah, it's a difficult path, trying to regulate and be centered, be in our heart. I suppose that's sort of that
mm.
that meter, that barometer, or that place that we want to be at. Do you find in your body, is the heart a space, like do you use that as a tether along with your
For sure.
yeah,
For
that's quite
sure. The
something.
Heartful healer.
Well, there you go. Right, of course, full circle. Yeah, but isn't it amazing that we do have this? I
Yeah.
mean, like there's neurons in our heart and in our gut, and
Mm,
it does go beyond
mm-hmm,
the heart. But if I just pinpoint the heart in my body through a felt sense, I know I can count on that. It's such a
mm,
powerful place to bring my attention. Um,
mm,
there's consciousness there that doesn't
mm-hmm,
lie. Like
mm-hmm,
it doesn't lie about other people. It doesn't lie about myself. It's like, wow,
mm.
it's so beautiful that we have that. And so how do we help people, other people who, I'm speaking for myself. If I consider myself 15, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, before I had a really significant spiritual awakening, how do we support? Is it about guiding people there or waiting for people to discover that and
Mm.
then helping them as they're kind of putting the pieces back together and trying to form
Yeah, I love
their own
that.
path?
Yeah, you used a word barometer, and
Hmm.
that's a really good word. There's certain cultures that point to the mind and say that instead of thinking with our mind, we're feeling with our mind and we're thinking with our heart.
Mm.
And so when we're thinking from that place, and I think there's a guiding, but people aren't actually going to take it until they're ready. You can have your hands open with all of this information, and they're until they're ready, they're not going to follow, but you can open that space again in that held way, that when people feel, I think, seen and heard, then they can take it on, and then we can help them open that space. And it's possible for everybody. It really is. I really believe that in the healing work that I'm doing, that we're we're not a lost cause as human beings as much as we may feel we are at times,
Yeah.
that we can come back to this heart space and really understand what it means to think with our hearts.
Hmm. And then to feel seen and heard. I mean, for a moment, we can feel seen and heard, but if we're actually not seen and heard, we're going
Mhm.
to catch on in a hurry. So for the support person, like the guru or the therapist or the personal friend who's playing a
Right.
supportive role, like for that person to actually see that person in that deep way, in that meaningful way, like
Mhm.
that. Would you call it a guru that you sat in front of in the Buddhist monastery?
No, no, he was the head monk, and they call a head monk an abbot who's been in the robes for many, many years. And so sitting in front of the Buddhist monk and seeing me and bursting me into tears, it was the first
Yeah.
time a man had said to
Mm,
me, I see you. And how powerful is that as a woman and or a man to truly, with nothing attached, say, I see you.
hmm.
We definitely can give that gift to our children, but definitely to our partners, to our friends, and that's really special to stop and look at somebody in their eyes and say, "I see you," and to just have that felt sense. I don't think that's a regular occurrence for many people,
No kidding.
unless they've, yeah.
And it sounds like he really did. Like you sat before him and he would have just seen your essence,
Mm-hmm,
the deepest
mm-hmm,
part of you.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that was
Um,
over 15 years ago.
yeah.
So yeah, I can't stop thinking about that moment. I can almost smell the room and see everything as clear as day. And for that remembrance of our system, because I think that we are all that pure essence, and for others to also see that pure essence in a truly real, vulnerable, deep connecting way. That's what I hope my clients feel when they sit in front of me. Do they feel that, so they can actually sense that? It's not actually always the words, it's just sitting there with the pain and suffering, and allowing heart to connect.
I want to get on to one other continuum before we wrap up, and the continuum of masculine and feminine and male and female. From your perspective, the men and the women, how are they different in terms of how they're showing up, the obstacles that they're facing? What does that look like? Are you seeing anything,
Mm.
any kind of patterns?
Oh yeah, as a single lady out in the world here trying to date, there's definitely many differences. I'd say for the feminine, I think women. I think maybe it could be age too, but in some ways we are waking up more to our divinity, and I think men are learning how to wake up to their divinity. I'm not saying all men aren't in their divine selves. Definitely, I'm not saying that. That I think it hasn't been safe for men and women to truly be in their divine essence, and I think that that's part of the work that you're doing, and the work that I would like to be doing in the future is really helping men be seen by the feminine, not in a wounded way, not in a way that's putting them down, and vice versa, that we could really stand in front of each other and say those words, I see you, without there being any agenda or anything attached to it. So I think that the more that these conversations that you're having with people are open, and more men and women are starting to hear these conversations, I think that allows them to feel that heart opening. Oh, I can actually show up, and I don't have to put on a mask like you shared before. I don't have to hide behind anything here. I can actually authentically. We don't know what it means to stand in our authentic selves anymore. We've really lost our way, I think. And that's just my personal belief. But I also believe that the ground beneath us as humans, men and women, is that we're creating this beautiful container of, we can start to now dance together in a different way. I feel like the flow is changing. I'm not sure if it's just the climate is changing or what's changing, but I really feel that there's hope for us.
Yeah, feel the same way. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's a dominant culture thing. There's so many people on the planet,
Mhm.
and I don't, I'd have to be a world traveler and have many lifetimes to be able to go around and to really look into the different ways that people are living and experiencing life. But I
Mhm.
know in our backyard in this culture here, which I've been to the U.S. and to Europe enough to know that it's not all that different. It's a Western culture, that has a
Mhm.
certain flavor. Um, there there are so many obstacles to discovering our authentic self.
Mm.
The first of um, media, obviously, the devices that we carry, and the that's a part of it. That's something that I think people can manage because they have choice, and they know that people know that they have choice around that, and they can put their phone away for a period of time. But the bigger backdrop of a lack of emphasis on having a spiritual practice, a lack of emphasis on recognizing that you have a barometer within you, and
Mm.
that should be the priority, as opposed to being a part of someone else's idea or expectation of what you should be and what you should accomplish, and how that gets passed down through our ancestrally through trauma. I wonder, with men, we don't have moon time. We don't have that monthly
Mhm.
cycle. You have somebody who's on the Buddhist path that lives, in a monastery. That's different. So you take
Mhm.
a man in contemporary culture, and he's interested in Buddhism. Is it enough is there a way for it to be enough, in order for him to find that barometer and a part of himself, let's call it masculinity, that's going to be, um, and that's going to allow him to meet somebody who's going through that regulated by nature rite of passage every month, and then menopause being like the final hurrah, that men don't get any of that. So,
Mhm.
what's that? Where's that leveling up of consciousness happening? Is it? And I don't mean to. Um, I, I mean, I guess I don't really feel any judgment. I actually don't know, and I think it's different for
Mm.
every person. So it is just a curiosity from your perspective. Is there something else that can be added to a Buddhist path for men that maybe isn't necessary for?
Well, yeah, definitely, the cyclical living, because women and every month, and men are every 24 hours. I think your hormones peak and subside every 24 hours, and where you
Hmm.
go through a whole month cycle of that. So, I think to add to it for sure is learning about women,
Hmm.
learn about our cycles, understanding us and our rhythms is definitely imperative, and women to understand men's rhythms. That's where I feel we've lost our way, because we don't have the elders teaching us these ways, and I think that might be coming back more. Maybe we're honoring that. You and I both live a very privileged life in many ways, and how do we come back to really understanding working from the earth? And I think the Buddha definitely honored that part where nature has a cycle as well. And so when we can tune into that cyclicalness of Mother Earth, I think that also teaches us, if we really tap into it properly with a teacher. Important to have a teacher on any spiritual path that is guiding us and showing us, and is available for questions and so forth. I think it's possible, but I think we definitely have some work to do as a feminine culture and as a masculine culture. However, we have been more male dominated, but I do feel Mother Earth is preparing and showing the way to help soften that masculinity that might have been more in a control, as opposed to now, how do we stay in our power in a safe and beautiful way, and vice versa. For women, we don't need to hide and be quiet. We can be loud, but we don't need to put down in that loud, and we can be wild and free and go with our cycles. But it's understanding each other. So that's a lot of things that I do in couples work, is helping them understand each other. And the number one thing I say is be curious. How are you curious? with one another when you ask questions, curious with self and curious with your partner.
Yeah, I've just an image of, sitting in circle with you someday, that
Mm,
that gathering in a circle, and for any whatever lineage we're following, whatever teacher we're working with, but that the power of just coming together and being in circle,
mm,
it's really landing for me,
mm,
more and more and more, just the importance of it, the value of it in our communities, like in proximity to our people,
mhm,
or friends or peers, but yeah, what I'm getting, like, because I have a karmic call, I suppose, more rigorous teachers. So ayahuasca being one of them, and then the Lakota
mhm,
path, and that's just
mhm,
who I am. And I wonder, because I've gained so much from that sort of very difficult rites of passage, and
mhm,
several of them. And but I love it. And
mm,
I know more. There are men who walk a lighter path, and I know that it doesn't mean that we're getting to a finish line sooner.
mm,
So
mhm,
I guess, but what you said about having a teacher, and I think that's very, very, very important, especially if you consider yourself to be a person who wants, who has the call to be of service to others,
mhm,
to have a teacher yourself, and to have that tether that's, um, yeah, to a lineage, to a teacher. And I have a friend that who is a ayahuasquero, and her highest level teacher is actually a meditation teacher. I don't know the lineage, but it has
mm,
no medicine whatsoever. And she'll go and get cleaned by that person when her the teachers in the Shipibo tradition can't quite get to those, certain nuances, the
mm,
dark corners. Though those people do exist in that, in the Shipibo tradition, and then in the Lakota tradition. There are the healers, let's call them, of that level. It doesn't, sort of an arbitrary thing in a sense. It's more about getting to, somebody who's able to bring that light, that's able to channel those divine, has permission, let's say, to
mm.
channel those divine, the real healers. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So,
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's
yeah.
really lovely. And I would just want to say thank you for doing the work, because what you're showing is you're showing men that it's okay and you're leaning into the practice, and this
Uh-huh.
is not for the faint of heart, this human being life.
That's right.
we
That's the thing. Is
Yeah,
like that's what I think
yeah,
when I see
yeah.
that, because it's like people avoiding any kind of practice, and it's like,
Uh-huh.
kind of, well, your life's really hard. It's not going to get
Uh-huh.
harder by coming over
Uh-huh.
here and learning and
Uh-huh.
looking at those reflections, looking at shadow, learning
Uh-huh.
about suffering, the nuances of that, and it gets easier,
Mhm.
the more that we do that.
And it's the only way through all of it is through it.
That's
I
right.
it's the only way, and we avoid because we're taught to in society to avoid, and that's
Uh,
again where the teacher comes into play, the importance of
yeah,
keep going
totally.
and keep asking those questions and keep leaning in. It's going to be really hard at times, and you might be puking in a bucket or you might be crying for days on end. It's
Hmm.
the
Totally.
shadow's gonna find you anytime, and that's the only way
Yeah.
through is through.
Yeah. And then, we can learn the hard way. We can learn through adversity, or if somebody passes that, where it's unexpected, and
Mhm,
our attachment to that person and to our own mortality. If there's far more there than we realize, and we become undone during those times,
mm,
and we're not able to be of support to others, there's no judgment. But if you can see that there is a choice, looking for that teacher, looking for that, digging a little deeper, praying. I
mhm,
mean, prayer for me is just as important, if not more important, than meditation. And it is a form of meditation also for me. But
mhm, mhm,
so, yeah, I mean, it's,
mhm,
there's these unseen things going on that, they're not in opposition to science and
mm,
technology.
mm.
There's a win-win game here, this life existence. Like, there's so much mystery. Just by this, open your eyes. How can you think that you've got it figured out? Like feel your body for a second, and
Yeah.
like the squirrely sort of the gnarly things that might come up in dream time. It's like, explain
Mhm.
that right now. No, that. And it's like, no, you can't
Mhm.
explain that.
Mhm.
That's a felt sense of something that is well beyond our ability to pinpoint, with a
Yes.
ruler. And so, it's just we're all in it together, though. That I know for sure. And the power
We're
of
all on the
circle.
same boat.
Yeah, we are, whether we think it or not. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. We're all on this floating rock, and
yeah.
we're all experiencing this, and having that,
Hmm.
and being in circle, and how beautiful that is, that we can create, and to have that village again coming back. I just love the name of your podcast too, because that I've been speaking a lot is this village of attachment. And that's a Gordon Neufeld term, but it's also this village of attachment, non-attachment, let's say, even if we put it in Buddhist terms, but it's really a village of connection, a village of curiosity, a village of heart and compassion and consistency and being seen. Let's see
Yeah,
each other.
totally. And it can be all those things.
Hmm.
And, it's hard to see, and perhaps a lot of it is, for me, reflections of myself, but to see other people struggling and to see them caught in stories, and seeing the world as a very
Mm.
difficult, unconquerable place that is just suffering and misery and being oppressed, whether it's one group or political this or there all of that does exist in a certain way, but as far as
Mhm.
I'm concerned, it's there as an obstacle so we can uncover and have a journey uncovering something so beautiful. And without those
Yes.
obstacles, without that journey, if it was just there, well, we wouldn't really need this whole thing. So in,
Yeah,
whatever
we'd be free.
manifestation, yeah, we would be,
Mhm.
but we kind of come here, I'm guessing, right, for a reason to explore that journey, to learn from that journey. And
Yeah.
whatever it might look like in this day and age, there'll always be a journey. That's why we're
Wait,
here.
always.
Always.
And
Yeah.
often, we're trying to, as the Buddha really said, is to be liberated, to be
Mm-hmm.
beyond this body and this earth. And when he passed, he said, I will never return um, to earth again unless there is no Buddhism anywhere. Then I'll come back and I'll help. But that's not true. That's not
Ah,
going to happen.
yeah, beautiful.
Yeah,
That's really
very
powerful.
powerful.
And he
It
probably knew
is.
that. Like he
He knew
probably
that.
had that download and knew that. Yeah.
He was actually psychic. A lot of people don't know that
Yeah.
about the Buddha.
Ah, okay.
He had psychic abilities.
That's awesome.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be in it together, and then to have individuals that are blessed with that level of connection to help guide us, to the teachers, and
Hmm.
and on whatever level, to be able to mature and get through thresholds and be able to be of service and to be a teacher or a mentor or counselor or whatever the word is for others, is like, yeah, being of service is really, that's the golden ticket. As soon
That's the
as
golden ticket.
it really is, as soon as you
Yeah.
realize that karmic exchange is real, and it's, of course, it's better that you find that without knowing that. So maybe I'm ruining it for somebody, ruining the plot, because you don't want it to be a construct of the mind, because then you're still
Uh-huh.
you're still trapped in this sort of egoic
Yes.
self-referential, looking for that feedback.
Hmm.
But on the other hand, though, if you're out there pouring soup for somebody or whatever it is, like,
Hmm.
your that feedback will change. That wiring will change, even
Hmm.
if you're doing it for selfish reasons, quote unquote. Before long, that transaction, that there's so much value in that
Hmm.
transaction, and it carries into the dream time and in your
Hmm.
spiritual path. So,
Hmm.
anyways,
Definitely.
glad you're out there, Nina. And
I'm glad you're out there too.
yeah, it's good. There's a lot of common, and it might be because we're so similar. We share the same birth year and same birth sign. So we're
Hmm.
like we're like 2 or 3 weeks apart by birth. I think I'm
Hmm.
maybe three weeks older than you.
You're three.
And
Yeah, I'm
I'm your
December
senior.
17th.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm the 27th of November, so I
Well,
guess
there you
that would
go.
be, what is that? Anyways, 20
Yeah,
days.
20 days.
There you
Yeah.
go.
You're
Yeah.
20 days older than me and
Yeah.
wiser.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Mark. I really appreciate it.
Likewise. Any closing words, websites, any kind of,
Mm.
promotion there that you can let people know how to get in touch with you if that feels aligned?
Yeah, that's lovely. If you're on Instagram, it's at the Heartful Healer, and my website is theheartfulhealer.com. And I'd be happy to connect with you and whoever wants to come and book a session. It would be my pleasure to be part of your healing journey. And I'm so grateful to have my voice out there, and I appreciate the opportunity to be on this podcast. Yeah, I see you.
Beautiful.
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On that note, we'll close. This is Mark A. Lewis, the Sacred Village podcast. Have a beautiful day. Over and out.
I lay my head down.
Check out my lovely partner's music, Christina Jessen, at christinajessen.com. And there's also more information on what we're doing. We're doing a land project up here, traditional land development with a community intention. And if you're interested in any of the retreats that we're a part of and part of organizing, you can find all that information at sacredvillagepodcast.com. Have a wonderful day.